So, for those of you who don't know, Assassin's Creed Shadows is the next upcoming mainline Assassin's Creed game. It's going to be taking place in Japan. It's going to have two main playable characters, like Syndicate had with Evie and Jacob. And those characters are going to be Yasuke and a female ninja whose name I still don't know how to pronounce. It's a Japanese female ninja, and the way the name is spelled, I think it's Now, maybe Naue, but I'm not completely sure. But those are the two main playable characters. There's going to be some mechanics from the previous games making a comeback, because it is going to be an open-world style RPG like the Layla Hassan trilogy, which was Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Some of the mechanics making a comeback is going to be the Eagle Vision, not as in, like, you know, having the bird above your head. Like, the traditional Eagle Vision is making a comeback. You're going to be able to see characters and enemies through walls and whatnot. The pivot hidden blade, like Connor used in Assassin's Creed 3, is making a comeback, and it's going to be used by Naue. And then we're also going to be seeing a comeback of the Brotherhood system, more or less, from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Revelations, I believe, were the main games it was in. Maybe 2? It's been so long since I played 2. It might not have been in that, but I know it was in Brotherhood and Revelations, where you could, like, build your own Brotherhood and have, like, agents and whatnot. And then also there is going to be a system where you can more or less build and customize your own base, which I think is going to be pretty cool, because I love stuff like that. But with all that being said, there is a lot of criticism going around about this game, and I want to talk about some of it today. So the first thing I want to mention is something that's already been sort of handled by Ubisoft, which is the rumor going around that the game is going to be a live service game. And this rumor is based off, yesterday pre-orders went live with the trailer dropping. And on Sony's storefront for the pre-order, it said that the game would require an internet connection, which is false. Ubisoft and its team have come out today to dispel that. They flat out said that no, this game is not going to require an internet connection in single-player mode. This is not going to be a live service game. You will be able to play it offline. However, an internet connection will be required when downloading the game. But, I mean, if you want to have issue with that, then sure. You know, I don't necessarily decry people who think that, you know, the whole game should just come on the disc nowadays. But at the same time, that is pretty par for the course when it comes to modern day gaming. I don't remember the last time I've installed a game from any company that hasn't required some sort of update or additional information to be downloaded through a internet connection. So, it's not a live service game, guys. No need to worry about that. You will be able to play single player mode even if your internet goes out. But with that being said, probably the biggest criticism I've seen surrounding this game has been about Yasuke. Now, for those of you who don't know, Yasuke historically was a real person. He was a slave brought to Japan by the Portuguese, I think it was. I could be wrong, but I think it was the Portuguese. And more or less, he was sold into service to one of the lords at the time, Oda Nobunaga. And historically, we don't really know much about him. We know he was a sword bearer or a retainer to Nobunaga. But aside from that, we really don't know much about him. There's some evidence that he took part in 2 battles, one of which being the battle where Nobunaga ended up losing his life, or as a result of losing the battle, he committed seppuku, or harakiri, which is the ritualistic slicing of one's stomach in Japanese culture. But besides that, after that, he apparently left Japan. But besides that very, like, vague timeline of events, we really don't know much about him. A lot of people are arguing that, you know, the way Ubisoft is marketing him is historical revisionism, which I don't believe to be the case. I mean, Ubisoft is marketing him as the first black samurai. And a lot of people are up in arms saying, oh, that's revisionism, he was never a samurai, he was just He was more or less a pet to Nobunaga. He was just a jester, more or less. And it's like, I don't know about that, Chief, you know? Like, the Wikipedia, a lot of people are citing it, saying that, you know, there's no evidence to say he was ever a samurai, but also then you go look at Britannica, and Britannica is saying, yes, he was a samurai. Then you look up what a retainer is in Google, and it says that a retainer is more often than not a samurai. So, my position on it is that, you know, he could have been one, he also could have not been one. I don't think it really matters at the end of the day, because Assassin's Creed doesn't pride itself on its historical accuracy. The boot up screen for literally every game features a block of text that says, this is a fictional game, this is a fictional story. So, I mean, whether he's marketed as a samurai or as a retainer, I don't think it really matters, because, again, Assassin's Creed isn't known for its historical accuracy. Which is a weird thing, because I've seen a lot of people going at this from the historical accuracy aspect. It's like, what franchise have you been paying attention to? Like, yes, the settings that the games are taking place in are largely accurate, which is good, but at the end of the day, the games aren't about the settings. The settings are more or less a set dressing for the same basic story being retold and retold, which is an eternal fight between the Assassin Brotherhood and the Templar Order. Regardless of where it's taking place, it's the same basic story over and over. So, of course they'd want the setting to be accurate. I think that's fine. But overall, I think the term to be used is alt history, alternative history, where certain events are changed, or certain things are added or subtracted to make a compelling story. And that's more or less what they're doing with Yasuke. So, once again, whether he was a samurai or he wasn't, while yes, the character we're going to be playing as is going to be based off of the real-life figure, he doesn't need to necessarily do or not do, or be or not be everything the actual person was. The same way George Washington in Assassin's Creed 3 didn't fight alongside of a Native American assassin to beat the British. The same way Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't friends with Arno Dorian, I believe the main character from Assassin's Creed Unity was called. That never happened. Leonardo da Vinci wasn't creating guns and hidden blades for the Florentine assassins. None of that stuff was happening. So, people attacking it from the historical accuracy standpoint are really weird. And also, some people have brought up the whole Discovery Tour thing that Ubisoft decided to add into some of their more recent Assassin's Creed games, which is really weird because the Discovery Tour is a look at the setting itself. It's not a look at the story being told in the setting. Again, the setting is accurate, but the story told in the setting is alternative history, which is false. Some other examples too is like one of the popes being an evil megalomaniac villain, Rodrigo Borgia. That's not true. You know, the Borgias didn't fight with an order of assassins. They weren't Templars. There weren't magic orbs they were trying to obtain to control the populace. That stuff never happened. But I digress. So another point that people are bringing up against Yasuke is the fact that since this is the first Assassin's Creed game set in Japan, that we should be playing as a Asian character. Two things. And this is sort of where the whole idea that I put forth of a lot of people saying or against it are being just racist. But I'll explain the point more in detail in a second. So, two things. One, you are going to be able to play as an Asian, or a Japanese, as a Japanese character. It's Naoe. She's a Japanese ninja. So, it's not like Japanese people are being erased here, right? And two, I understand that Yasuke isn't Japanese himself, he is an African man, but at the same time, he has historical context for being in Japan. There have been games and anime made about Yasuke from Japan. Him being a main character in this shouldn't be a big deal. And I know a lot of people are probably going to bring up some tweets from, Japanese people who don't necessarily like the decision, which that's fine. You can prefer to have a Asian male samurai character, but when you start making arguments that sort of fall flat on their face, that's sort of where the racism sort of creeps in for me, at least. Or the perception of racism creeps in for me, at least. Because, as an example, one of the main arguments that I've seen cropping up is that, it doesn't make sense for him to be there. There's never been a game where the assassin main character, or the Templar main character in one instance, hasn't been from the place that you're playing in, which is blatantly false. It's not true. So let's run down the list real quick. The first instance that I can think of would be Assassin's Creed Revelations, where you play as Ezio, an Italian man, in Constantinople. Now, a lot of people I've interacted with said, well, there is a Roman-Italian populace within Constantinople, which is fine, but the point is that Ezio is not from there. Why are we playing as an Italian man in Constantinople instead of a Turkish man? Constantinople being in Turkey, modern-day Istanbul. Why aren't we playing as a Turkish person, right? I understand that Ezio's journey, his story took him there, but at the end of the day, again, these are falsified events. They didn't actually happen. It's a fictitious story, so why couldn't his story have just had him stay in Rome, have him stay in Italy? He didn't need to go there. The next instance is Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. Edward Kenway is Welsh, he's a white man, and his story took place in the Caribbean. Just like with Ezio, people are justifying it, saying, well, the game takes place during the golden age of piracy, so of course, a Welsh man, a European man, is going to be there as a pirate. Which I say, fair, that's fair enough, but at the same time, why weren't we playing as one of the native people from the Caribbean that we see in the game itself? The whole Assassin Brotherhood we see in Black Flag is from that area. They're native to that area. I don't necessarily remember the names of the tribes, which I apologize for, but there were multiple indigenous people in that area that we didn't get to play as. And not to mention, if the argument is, well, you needed some way to connect it to piracy, well, what about James Kidd? I can't remember her actual name, because James Kidd was the identity that she took on to legitimize herself as a pirate, but James Kidd was a pirate with connections to the Brotherhood from that area, so if there needs to be connection to piracy made, you could have just been an assassin from the local tribe that made up the Brotherhood, that then went on to serve as the helmsman for Captain James Kidd. It works perfectly fine. You didn't need Edward, you didn't need a white man to... And I don't have an issue with Edward. I like Black Flag. The ending when he sees all of his deceased friends around a table, spoiler warning, the ending when he sees all his deceased friends around the table drinking is legitimately one of the best moments in the franchise, and I wouldn't change a thing about the game. But if we're going to be making this argument that, Yasuke shouldn't be there, it should be a Japanese character, the Japanese should have their representation, then why didn't the native Caribbean people have their representation? Why didn't the native Turkish people have their representation? But going on, more examples, Assassin's Creed Rogue. Shay Cormac is Irish, to my understanding. Yet you're playing in the North Atlantic and colonial America. Or pre-colonial America? It's America, anyway. So, why didn't we get, an indigenous person because, you know, there are Native Americans in the game. We literally fight against one. We see the tribes. We have to fight alongside the British. You know, which, again, that's justification enough, because you are on the side of the Templars, and this game is sort of spinning it to be where it's like the assassins in this situation are the bad ones. They don't understand what they're doing, and the Templars are the heroes. Which, side note, we should get more of that. I think a sequel where we see more from Shay would be very interesting, if not another good aligned Templar and a bad assassin. I think that could be very interesting. We kind of got it in Syndicate with Jack, but honestly, I'd be really into a Assassin's Creed game set in India where you play as Jack during his training and you sort of see his fall. That could be really interesting. But anyway, I digress. If we're going to be playing as Shay, why couldn't we have, you know, played in Ireland? You know, I know we got the DLC for Valhalla where we were in Ireland, but it would have been really cool to have, you know, a game set in Ireland where we played as Shay. If not that, we could have played as a Native American in Rogue. And it's not like there weren't Native American tribes that sided with the British. You could have played with one of them, or played as a tribesman from one of the tribes that sided with the British during that time period. It didn't need to be Shay. Again, nothing against Shay, but it didn't need to be him. Then after that, what do we got? I think the last example would be Valhalla. Eivor. You know, I love Valhalla, by the way. I love the whole Layla Hassan trilogy. I think people are too hard on it. Like, all of them are good. If not a little long, but I don't really have a problem with having games that are overly long. I enjoy spending a lot of time in the worlds I'm in, but beside the point. The last example would be Valhalla, where you're playing Eivor, a Norse man or woman, depending on your choice, a Norseman who is from, I mean, he's Norse, you know, the Scandinavian countries, and you're playing in Anglo-Saxon England. You know, again, it makes sense for a Norseman to be there because, you know, Vikings went raiding, they did settle in Anglo-Saxon England at different points, but at the same time, just because it makes sense, I mean, why couldn't we play as an Anglo-Saxon person? An Anglo-Saxon character. Maybe somebody that was rebelling against the church. Maybe you could have sort of recycled the story that Ezio went through with the Borgias, but in Anglo-Saxon England. That could have been interesting. Not just that, but what if, wild idea, what if, considering the fact that in Valhalla we do go to America, more or less, and we meet the tribe that Connor is from, just way, way back, like, before he was ever even conceived, before Hatham was born, just way back in time, in like the 9th century, I believe. What if one of their tribe members got taken back overseas? And I know I'm sort of, again, diverging from the main point of the video, but, you know, I think it could be really cool if we got a Native American Viking character. That'd be crazy. But, anywho. So, all of these characters that I talked about, Edward, Shay, Ezio, Eivor, they all have justification for being in the settings they're in. But so does Yasuke. Yasuke was taken there as a slave. He has justification for being there. But if we're going to ignore Yasuke's justification for being in that place he's in, then likewise, applying the same standard, we should ignore the justification for Ezio, Eivor, Edward, and Shay being in the settings they're in. That's only fair, right? I think that's a pretty fair standard. So when it comes to the whole racism thing, right? The reason I say that, the reason why I say a lot of people are coming off racist with their criticism against Yasuke is specifically because in all of the other examples applying the same standard, it's a white man. Shay is white, Edward is white, Ezio's white, and Eivor is white. All of them are white men. Yet, for some reason, it wasn't an issue then? Well, why not? Like, what's the actual difference between those 4 people and Yasuke? And I've talked to multiple people about it. They say, no, there is a difference. And then, when I ask them to explain, they explain the context for them being in the regions they're in. It's like, okay, fine and dandy. Yasuke has justification for being in Japan. He was taken there against his will and then sold into servitude to Nobunaga. What's the issue? And it just breaks down into a conversation about just being intellectually dishonest, right? Like I said, I don't like throwing that term around, but a lot of the people who are up against this are throwing around terms like DEI and, you know, woke and Sweet Baby Inc. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of anti-SJW stuff I personally agree with. I think, you know, the SJW cult isn't great. I think the whole culture war that they've been a part of isn't great. But, on that note, at the same time, I also think anti-woke people are also just as much of a cult. And a lot of the people who are engaging in this, like, when they say DEI, they're just saying black person. Like, it's not hard to see. And like I said, not everybody who has criticism for this game is racist. In fact, I had a nice conversation with someone earlier who is a Turkish fan of the series. And it was a perfectly reasonable conversation. And by the end of it, we both agreed that even though he may not have been excited for Yasuke, he would still give the game a chance. But a lot of the people who are up in arms about this game, about Yasuke being included, are tourists to the series, and they probably wouldn't have bought the game anyway. So why are they even talking about it? It's all just a big grift. And it's like, if you're not going to buy it, then don't talk about it. You know? But on that note, I want to thank y'all for watching. Please leave your thoughts down in the description, or down in the comments section, excuse me. You know, I'm willing to have a conversation with somebody who's against this game. I will talk to them for hours on end as long as it's a good faith conversation. So, if you want to talk about it, let me know. I'll hop in Discord VC and we can talk about it. You know, make sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter. I ramble a lot on there, talk about different things and whatnot. But that being said, guys, thank you for watching.